Hi, my name is Michael Konnert. I'm the founder and CEO of Vizsla Silver. Vizsla Silver is developing the very high grade, very large district called the Panuco district in Sinaloa, Mexico. We have an ongoing 120,000 meter drill program that's completing this year, and we expect to put out our first update to the maiden resource towards the end of this year.
Michael, good to see you, sir. You're calling us from Beaver Creek Conference, and you're, I think, delightful backdrop of your bedroom. So I appreciate making the time because you've got a bit of a busy day ahead of you, I suspect. Who are you there to see?
Well, it's been a great mix of, even sell side, buy side, and even corporates and kind of everything in between. It's been a really exciting time for us. It's the busiest I've ever seen a schedule. So a lot of people are interested.
A lot of people interested, not so much in silver recently. What's going on in the market?
Well, I think we're all a victim of a strong dollar and a rate hike environment, which, it can continue for a little while, but it won't continue forever.
I think that seems to be the general consensus. I'm glad you said it. Right. But here's the other thing is, like, I've been reading through your press releases. It's more high grade after more high grade after more high grade. Do you think there's a kind of malaise in the market in terms of the types of stories that you're putting out?
Yeah, well, we tried to drill some low grade, but we couldn't find it there. No, and I'm joking, of course, but it can get to a point where there's a bit of a you get a little bit tired of these multi-kilo hits over big widths. But this is all for a good reason. We're adding ounces faster than anyone. And if you want to add ounces fast, it's good to drill big, thick structures with high grades. So, we have an end in sight, and the end in sight is to build, basically our vision is to build one of the world's largest silver primary producers out of the Panuco district. So, this is all part of the plan here.
Okay, well, maybe that's the important bit of this conversation. All joking apart is you keep drilling for a purpose. You've got this 120,000 meter drill program, which is sort of you're coming towards the end of. But everyone wants to be the biggest. Fill in the blank. How are you actually going to deliver that?
Well, one thing is becoming very, very clear to us, and I do tell this story a little bit every once in a while, but the person that the Spanish conquistador that discovered Panuco found two other places before he died at Panuco in his mid 30s. But that first one was Fresnillo, which, the Fresnillo, the world's largest silver miner, is named after. The second one is the city of Durango, which is, prolific for mines. And then this is the third. Now, we always knew that. But what we didn't know was the kind of the concentration and the amount of high grade and broad mineralized structures here. But it's becoming more and more clear to us that this is truly one of these tier one districts in Mexico, and probably one of the last in existence, that hasn't been consolidated and hasn't been explored before us.
Right, but I want to know precisely how you're going to get to the position of a tier one silver producer. From drilling to where you need what you need to be able to deliver to get to that point. There's a bunch of stuff that you got to do, and you've got a lot of coverage from analysts. I'm sort of intrigued by the way that they look at you. I'm intrigued by what the institutional investors are saying to you. What do they need to see? I mean, I'm not the ones that want you to raise money so they can make their fees, but the ones who are genuinely in this because they think you can get to that number one or tier one position.
The way that we look at it, there's probably, it's a dual track path here. We joke sometimes that, our grandkids will be finding discoveries of veins here, as we continue to explore. We're going to be drilling here for a very long time. So, there's always going to be an ongoing discovery drill program, resource development program for drilling going on the property. But in the background, what we've been doing for even the last year and a half is baseline environmental studies, geotechnical, hydrological studies. We have internal scoping. We have an internal scoping study, which is assisting us on basically mill placement, all the things we need to do for permitting, power line hookup off of the grid. Now, we do have excellent infrastructure here. There's two highways that run through the property. There's high tension power that crosses over the veins. It couldn't be better in terms of infrastructure, but, what we're doing as, the public sees us drilling and putting out splashy numbers all the time and adding resources, it's all part of a larger plan here, which is, it's probably, this update here, resource update towards the end of the year before Christmas. It's probably one more resource update as we continue to grow. And then it's a scoping study economics. Of course, we don't put a timeline on that because 6 months ago, if we were talking about that, we would have said, it'll be sometime in early 2023. Then we made the discovery of Copala, and everything kind of changed in terms of the scope and the potential throughput of an operation. But we do have some internal goals and metrics, and our stretch target is really to be a 20 million ounce per annum producer. And in order to do that, we need to find, well in excess of several hundred million ounces of silver equivalent, which I believe is achievable. But that doesn't mean that's all we're going to find. We're going to continue to drill as we develop the project through studies and into construction.
Right. Okay. So there's a sort of timeline laid out there, and a statement of intent, ambition from you in terms of the size of this. That probably serves you quite well in this market where we're seeing sort of capex projects being budgets being blown out of the water significantly through this inflationary, COVID and supply chain issue time of ours. So with the capital component right now, you've got enough to get you through to they've finished off the 120,000 meter drill program. Then there's a resource update. Will you continue with the drilling there if you've got to deliver this scale that you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah, we it's imperative that we continue drilling. And that's really, near-term targets, near-term catalysts for investors. First of all, we've bounced off the bottom very well despite the silver price recently. But really, there's two main catalysts. There's the resource updates, which are kind of the big milestones. And then following that, it'll be some sort of, scoping study, PEA. But really, how I see it as a catalyst is, what if we find another Copala? I mean, Copala is 10 meters thick. It's 5 times the size of average mine width in Mexico. And it's half a kilo in grade and runs for a kilometer. And we still haven't found the extents of it. So, for us to find something like that, again, while we're drilling, but while we're developing the project, you get the best of both worlds. You get, moving through towards production, which will be, by the way, a low capex. I think one can look at Silvercrest as kind of a benchmark for what it costs to build a similar processing facility and a mill to what we'd be looking at here. So it's sub 150 million USD. That's well built. It's not the cheap option. I think this is really kind of a must-own company in that sense. If you love discovery, you love high grade, but you also want to take advantage of higher gold and silver prices in the future.
Right, and I'm talking of must-own. I mean, do you feel that you are doing everything you can to attract attention from outside bidders, or is this something that you, through Inventor Capital, are genuinely intent on actually delivering into producing silver operation yourselves? Well,
there's a couple of data points, and it might be annoying, but I'm kind of pseudo-philosophical about it, because we can only control the things that we can control here. And we can't control when a company decides that they must own us, of course, right? And I think when companies build to sell, they might cut corners. It's clear that this is going to be a transformational asset for whoever owns it, and we'd be very happy to move forward and be one of the world's largest single asset silver producers here with Panuco. But we also have the team that can deliver on it. I'm relatively young, but and our core team that we're energetic. We get out there, we tell the story to everyone who will listen to us, but we're backed up by people on the ground that are 20-year, 30-year veterans in Mexico that build mines and operate mines. People that have worked at Pan American, Agnico, Capstone, all of the major operations in Mexico. And then on our board, of course, the living legend Craig Perry is our chairman. He's built the coal mine in far eastern Russia, challenging environment for sure. Simon Smirlik on our board, chief operating officer of Ausenco Engineering. They just built Las Chispas in Sonora. So Simon's been to more mines than most people, or has built more mines than most people have ever been to. And that's the kind of guidance and support that we have. Although we have an energetic kind of core team, the support on the ground and the board that we have is totally conducive to building this. Right.
So if you look at internally, there's going to be internal discussions, and then there's going to be the marketing stuff, right? Internally, you're talking about, well, what are the re-rate potential moments for this company? And I expect, silver price is going to do a lot of heavy lifting for you and everyone else. But what are the bits that you are absolutely laser focused on to happening? And I don't want it just to be about the the resource updates. Like, what does it take to deliver the data that you're going to need to put the best possible resource update there? What are the things which are super important for you to focus on to be able to deliver the best economics when you get through to the economic studies?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with mine sequencing. And so what we've been looking at there in terms of kind of payback, and payback is going to be incredibly important for us. So if you were to take a look, and it's interesting, if you look at our maiden resource, that's going to be pretty historic by the time we put out this, in only 9 months, by the time we put the update in towards the end of the year. So you're going to see some high grade structures there like Copala 2 and Cristiano, the high grade zone at Napoleon, and then the incredible high grades at Copala, and understanding how those would sequence into basically products that you need. So that's what we're laser focused on. But at the same time, it's optimizing metallurgy. We have high recoveries already. Understanding the flow sheet early on, that's important. And then it's just making sure that we don't have major delays around, power and permitting and things like that. So how do we offset that? But really, it's all about how do we get the highest return for investors and maximize value with mine sequencing.
Okay, the mine sequencing, that's really, really interesting. And I kind of like this sort of slightly old school approach, which is let's just make sure we, have maximum possible margins on everything. Rather than just telling stories in the market. That's kind of good news. With regards to, you mentioned something there in terms of making sure that we're not kind of held up in terms of permits and licenses and so forth. And environmental is a big thing at the moment in South America. What's it doing up there in Mexico for you? I mean, in terms of conversations locally or federally, are you getting still the right sorts of noises that you would expect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, it has become a little bit more of a challenging environment in Mexico, but it's become a more challenging environment everywhere in the world. And we have investments in Inventa in copper mines in British Columbia and things elsewhere around the world. But this is the best permitting scenario that I've ever seen, permitting environment that I've ever seen, kind of in terms of our broad scope of investment. So I love Mexico for that. It is a little bit more challenging. Everything worth doing is a bit challenging, so that's no problem. But you know what, the fact that we're a brownfields district, fact that we have a past operating and previously permitted mill and underground mines that are permitted on the district that we own makes it a lot easier. So, that's, it's not going to be, nothing's easy ever in mining, of course, but as far as the position you want to be in, we're in the best position there because it's a brownfields district. It's a mining town. Everyone there, 70% of our workforce comes from those, the surrounding towns. We're a big part of the towns, and they're miners. They've been miners for 500 years.
So, okay, help me out here. Okay, I have historically not been a kind of silver bull, and I'm sort of coming round to sort of understanding it a little bit better, having spent a lot more time on it. Okay, we get that you're going to be tier one, and you are top of the list when it comes to who investors should be throwing their money at. Okay, let's take that as read. But there are going to be there's a lot of silver stories out there at the moment who are perhaps suffering because of the woes of the market and silver price, but I suspect there's going to be a lot of marginal projects who are going to suffer, which for me as investors is kind of a good thing if I'm looking in anew, because it means there's less kind of choice, because I'm slightly overwhelmed with silver company choice at the moment. So what are those sort of companies look like for you in terms of those sort of marginal projects? What broadly are there the features that I should be looking at and say, well, actually, do you know what that is? That's a slightly less attractive because of the following features.
Well, I think what's important for silver companies, and really any mining company is margin, right? So people always say grade is king, but grade isn't necessarily king. Margin is king. And, you can get margin through a couple of different things. One is a low cost operating environment, like Mexico, or through scale, like a large district, and certainly through grade and near surface mineralization, right? So those are kind of the keys. Another thing I would think about would be, grade is great, but grade over a half a meter or 20 centimeters kind of, suffers a lot of dilution underground. So you need to think about that. And so, what are your average mining widths underground? What are the widths of the structures? That's always important. So there's a few points like that. And of course, it always brings me back to, if you want something that's high margin and a spectacular project, then what's better than a high grade district in Mexico and a brownfields area that you can actually put into production. So I think Vizsla checks all those boxes.
It does. It does indeed. And okay, I think you've got another day and a half or so there down at Beaver Creek. I hear it's ram-packed. Everyone's buoyant, excited to be there. What does like a good conference look like for you once you've got through this?
It's important to take this all seriously too. So for us, it's just that we're there, we're present, we're executing on all these meetings, and that we're just doing the best job we can to tell the story. And so I always really enjoy these, and we have our team here as well. So we've got a bit of a divide and conquer if we need to approach, which is always helpful. And so right now, Mike Pettingill is our VP of Biz Dev is taking a meeting with the a sell side analyst, and so this is what really excites us. We feel like we've got the best story to tell, and so we try to do the best job doing it. So at the end of the day, if we feel like we've done that, we feel like we've got our money's worth at a conference.